This time around on this lesson, we'll be speaking about commands on Python. So commands on Python are very easy and they help us to give description to the code that we want to write. So let's just start the commands. So we have learned in our previous lessons that we are able to write a Python program, and we were able to write our first Hello World program. So if I could just bring that back up, you will then see that we'll have something like this. Hello World, right? And then we wrote a couple of few statements as well. We also changed the Hello World to also greet someone, and we can do this to to print anything we want to display on the screen. We can just change the content of what is inside the these braces here, the brackets. So here, as you saw last time, I was saying hi Tendo, but then now the commands on Python, as I've said, they help us to give description to our code, and it's very important, especially for code reusability. So if ever you are gonna be working in a team, if ever you wanna make sure that your code is readable for the next person, it is advisable that before you even start your code, you must first by giving it a description, so that the next person who's gonna open this kind of code, be it for maintenance. Let's say you have written an application for a shop, and then that application is working, but then you are no longer the appointed service provider to maintain the application or to service the application. That means there must be a next person who's gonna come to read your code and see where can they make those changes they want to make. So it's very important for you to give the correct description for each and every block of code that you will be writing on your program. It's not really mandatory for you to describe each and every line, but then you can describe, let's say, a block of code to say this part is performing 1, 2, 3. This part was written for this purpose. Maybe you can even give it the author name, who wrote the code, was involved, and such thing. So to give a comment on Python is very simple. All we do, we put a hash code before anything else. So if I put a hash there, and I can say this is my first comment, right? So this code will not be compiled by the compiler, so the compiler is not going to even focus here. So the minute the compiler sees a hash, it assumes that this line does not work. This is for description, so you're giving it a description to say it should not focus on this part, but the compiler will start focusing on this second line together with the other lines. And then you can do this for the other part as well. You can come put a hash code here and then just simply give it a description to say I am greeting someone. Right, so you can do this for almost everywhere where you want to put comments. So I usually advise my students to say, before they can start any project, they must go to the top and make sure that they give it a description, so that you can say this program is for learning how to print. Right, so this is the first time we're going to learn about how a comment is written. You are also allowed to also put a comment just after the code that you have written. So you can come after the code you have written and put that comment right after this. So the compiler will stop executing the minute it sees what? The symbol hash. So it will stop executing. So you can put more comments here. And on comments, you are allowed to write anything on a comment, as long as the next person will be able to understand what is this piece of code doing, and then hence it's called a comment. Okay, so there are other ways you can also write a comment. Let's say there is a piece of code that you were writing, and then you realize that you no longer need it. So let's say, for example, I no longer need this first part which is saying this second part which is saying print hi tender. So all I have to do is to make sure that I come and put a hash code just before it. Then this will make this statement not to be executed. You can see it has even changed the colors to be gray to show you that this piece of code is no longer executable, right? It's part of the comment. So it's also important to note that. And then you can write multiple comments as you wish, right? You can write multiple comments as you wish. So let's say you wanted to say, like at the top you say, this is the first, this program is for learning how to print. This is my first comment. Let's say we remove this comment. We want to write the author, the people involved, excuse my spelling, involved are, and then you start listing the names of those people. So it will be tidiest to always put a hash all the time here when you want to give a comment. So what you will say, maybe you will say Tendo was involved in the program, in developing the program. Maybe you also want to say Tinashe. Maybe you also want to say Shana was also involved. So you write Shana there. So this becomes a long process of writing hash all the time. So there is another way you can perform this. So the other way would be, instead of pushing hash each time you want to put a comment, you can, so let me just go remove all this hash to show that if you remove the hash, the comment goes away, right? Then this becomes our errors. So now what we're going to find out is that you can put three colons or 3 quotation marks, and then when you are done with the comment, you can then go and close with 3 quotation marks. You can see with this IDE already, when you put 3 quotation, it knows that this block it's strictly for comment, right? So there is nothing else that it is expecting inside here. It will not execute anything which is in between the 3 quotation, and it's quoted 3 times, open quote, and a close quote on the other part. So it's very important. That is the other way to comment. So we've learned 2 ways of commenting today. We can comment using a hash, we can comment after the code, we can comment before the code to make the code not to work. We can also use quotations to comment, right? So that brings us to the end of our session for today, and I will see you next time.